down afterwards.
Now, thanks a ton there. Sorry I'm late, guys. I'm having tons of Teams issues on my side. That's what we get for dogfooding our own stuff here. But I'm very excited to get into this with you guys. Um, as I'm pulling up the slides, sharing my screen, I do want to just quick chat messaging interactivity here a bit. How many of you have played with ChatGPT? Just, say yes or tell me about something fun or weird that you did with it in the chat. I'd appreciate that. I think that'll help us ground on where everybody's at. The things I want to sort of tackle here in this call primarily, I want to educate you on what it is, of course, but the idea is to make sure we're removing some of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or FUD, as we call it. That's not, not real, not it's misleading people, because I think there's a lot of that still happening today. So let me get the screen share going here. There we go. In just a second, you'll have that. I see a lot of I love ChatGPT. That's cool. I'd like to hear that. Okay, so quick agenda. We won't get through all of this, I think. But first thing I want to start with is the history, and I will make this bigger just a sec. So the first thing I want to start with is the history. So a lot of people are thinking about AI today in the mainstream. I know my mom is thinking, she's also a nurse, that there's, this is all brand new. Came out of nowhere. All of a sudden we have AI. That's not true right off the bat. That's the first myth we'll kind of bust here. Um, AI has actually been a field in computer science since 1950s. We've been doing machine learning since the late 90s. And machine learning really is just looking at a large amount of data and trying to figure out how do we decide or predict what the next set of data would look like. That's really a lot of what machine learning is. It's evolved, gotten better. And one of the big advances in machine learning happened in 2017 with neural networks and deep learning, which I won't get into all the complexities of that here. But again, just think about it as trying to use some of the ways that some of these algorithms that help do machine learning on even bigger sets of data that allow us to make more connections across all this data and again start to look for variables. A lot of that work actually is based on linear algebra, which has been around for a while as well. Some of you guys may have taken classes on linear algebra, but it's basically taking lots of different parameters of stuff that may not even seem relevant to a human. There's so many variables, but you find out using things like linear algebra and deep learning that when Coke has a sale at your grocery store, that Pepsi also sells better. Why is that? That's weird. That doesn't make sense. Well, it's because people don't have a lot of options in the duopoly that is soda, and they may come to the store or be attracted by the sale sign for Coke and then get there and go, but I like Pepsi better. I'm willing to pay a little bit extra for it. Crazy, right? Those are things that happen, and that's what machine learning has become very good at. Okay, so what did happen this year? Like what was all the buzz about then, Jeff? Is really about this idea of generative AI, or what you'll hear as large language models that ChatGPT came on the scene with. So what ChatGPT did is make huge advances with a lot more of the same kinds of technology in a slightly different approach. They've been working on it for a while. ChatGPT 2, I think, was like 20, I think it was 2020. Don't quote me on that, somewhere around there. Um, and ChatGPT just got to a point where it made such a big leap in what it could do that it got a lot more attention and a lot more people are using it, which is exciting. We really like to see that. Um, so what kind of excitement level are we talking about here? For those of you that somehow didn't hear about it, um, ChatGPT was the first or the fastest to reach 100 million users globally. Out of all the things, all these little icons I have on here that you've probably heard of, things like Uber, Spotify, Pinterest, Instagram, TikTok, um, all of those months are listed underneath their icons there. That's how long it took them, which are worldwide phenomenons for sure, to get to 100 million monthly active users. ChatGPT 3, which is what released in January, for at least most of us, that got there in 2 months, just 2 months. That's incredible. Um, it has a lot of things going for it, right? Some of these things that you see on here, like Uber, those are paid services, right? ChatGPT is free, at least what we mostly are using today. Um, there are paid versions of it, but you guys go out to ChatGPT or now Bing, which is built on the same technology, and that stuff's free. So that helps it get there a little faster, right? Um, Uber is also not available across the world in the same way that ChatGPT was suddenly. So that's another one. So there's a bunch of stats in here. I'm not going to read through all of these, but picking on a couple of big ones. More recently, we've had a lot more changes. There's been a GPT-4s announced, wildly more parameters that it takes in, so you get even better responses. Bing is now using that as an engine underneath the covers of Bing. We're making chat, so hopefully you guys have used that. That's also free. If you go do a search on Bing and ask it a question, you pick the chat channel, and it will answer it using ChatGPT's LLM underneath. Um, we're incorporating this into more of our products at Microsoft, which also creates more buzz, whether you're using them or not. There's this Copilot term. We're using it with GitHub for developers, and it's coming to Office and all the various versions of Office. Um, it's going to come to Windows. Some of you already have that even, but it's going to be in all these other things as copilots. And the reason I want to talk about copilots is because it's actually a better term for what this is than artificial intelligence. It took us a while at Microsoft to figure that out. I will be the first to fall on our sword there. But artificial intelligence is not where we're at. I want to be really clear about that myth as well. There is nothing sentient about this. All large language models do is, like I told you before with machine learning, is to help predict what's likely next. So if you put into ChatGPT something like how much wood could, and then hit enter, submit that, which you're welcome to do, you'll probably get something back like a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. You didn't really ask it how much wood could is barely an English question, but you gave it a thing, and then it said, "Wow, the most likely next thing is this." That's all it does. That is OpenAI, LLMs, ChatGPT, all those phrases I mentioned before. That's all this is. It's a really good completion engine. That's it. So we're really far away from anything sentient. We may be closer than ever before, but that's the inevitability of technology. We still have a long way to go. Um, before we approach that. Now it feels like it's super smart. It knows a lot of things, right? Because it's drawing on a big repository of knowledge. But again, all it's doing is when you ask it a question, how many people live in India? It says, all right, well, the most likely next thing is the answer to that question. And I just go find where somebody has asked that and I answer it, and voila, there's your data. So what makes that amazing is that you can use this as a co-pilot in whatever you do, almost everything you do. Um, and so it's not really artificial intelligence replacing intelligence, but it is a co-pilot in your pocket. It's a thing that you can use to help you have access to more knowledge without having to take the extra step that you would do today if you were to quote unquote Google that, where you'd say, I'm going to search for something. It's going to give me a bunch of potentially relevant sites and docs. And then I got to go click into that site or that document to get the answer I want. And I'm on my own for that. Like, I got to go read through all this stuff. What ChatGPT and all this technology has done is say, why don't you let me do that? Right? You ask me the question, I will look through all this stuff and I will give you back the likely answer to that question. And I stress likely there because it is likely. This is not perfect. It's just machine learning doing the best it can with the knowledge you provide it. There was a story, I don't have it on this calendar here, but there was a story, pull up the vocabulary we're talking. about a reporter who said that ChatGPT told him to leave their wife. And that made the huge news and it went everywhere. And see, AI is telling people to do things and they're immoral and they're trying to take us down. That's not really what happened. If you ask, if you tell ChatGPT, hey, look, I'm not happy with my life. I'm married. And then I hit enter. All it has is that information about you. It's not smart. It's not going to ask you more questions. It's going to say, okay, you're not happy and you're married. Well, do you want to change that happiness problem? That's how you get it down a path that you don't want it to be down. And the same happens with any of these questions. So one of the things you're going to see in the vocabulary here is prompt engineering. So prompts are what you as an end user put into this large language model, ChatGPT or what have you, copilots. That's a prompt. You're providing it some information. And then it looks at that information and tries to figure out, what is next. The way you craft that prompt then becomes extremely important. That's called prompt engineering. That's where you're figuring out, hey, how do I design or ask the right questions or give it the right set of information so that I get the response that I want? And so if you give it a bunch of dark, terrible stuff and then tell it, hey, do you think I'm happy or not? Then it's going to say, yeah, based on what you're giving me, that doesn't sound good, right? um, and so if you wanted to look for um, another fun one to do here is ask ChatGPT, um, can you explain a complex topic to me as if I was a fifth grader? This is a very popular YouTube series if you haven't seen that on explaining complex topics to different grades of schooling. And so you can do the same thing here, and you can say, explain something like quantum computing to me as if I was a fifth grader. Um, and it may come back and give you an explanation, and you may say, all right, well, great. So you didn't just explain quantum computing to me. If I just said that, you probably would have given me a lot of sciencey stuff that I don't understand. You dumbed it down for me because I asked you to. Make it like a fifth grader. Not that fifth graders are dumb. Um, but then you might want to ask more refining responses there. Like, okay, wait a second. I want to understand the benefit in agriculture for quantum computing. So you're going to add that in. You might want to say, and keep it under 300 words because I just need this for like a little blurb I'm posting on LinkedIn, or put it under 144 characters because I'm going to tweet about it. And so you're adding more to that prompt. And that's, again, part of the prompt engineering. And that can get fairly complicated. But here's the beautiful part. It's just English. It's just English. And so you will hear us at Microsoft often say English is the new programming language because that's what we're doing a lot more of is we're just writing English and letting ChatGPT or that large language model tell us what we need. Um, So that's prompt engineering. When it returns all that work, that's completions. That's what they call completions. So you send it a prompt, it comes back with a completion. All of those words that it comes back with and that you provided it, all that together, the prompt plus the completion, is what's broken down into what we call tokens. So you'll hear that often. There is a token limit. You can only have so many tokens going back and forth because there's a lot of compute that happens here. Um, so there is a limit, a real limit on those. But when you um, have your prompt, and again, that could be a short question or it'll be a long set of data that you're providing it that you want it to summarize or what have you, it comes back with a completion. And all of that together is a number of tokens, which are just parts of words. So a token doesn't equal a word. The word running might be two tokens, run and ing, right? But I say it might be because it depends on the context, the whole prompt and the whole set of completions. It may break down differently. It may be a little more efficient because, hey, look, I know what you're trying to do here, and I can call running one token in this case. So it does vary. So that's kind of some of the big vocab. A couple other things just so you guys know about it. Um, a lot of people want to fine tune these models, especially data scientists. So if you have any data science friends, that they want to get in there and play with the models and change the models. That's not really a thing. The models are done. Models take a long time to build, and they are very, very expensive to run. Um, and so you can't really go change them. You change them through prompt engineering. That's how you get the different responses. That's really all you can do. Um, Embeddings are really the math version of that. So if you hear that term, it's just taking all of those tokens and words and turning them into math that we call vectors. Um, and that becomes an embedding, and it's just a more efficient way for machines to work. But as people, the end users, we never deal with any of that. So that's some of the big vocab that I want to make sure you guys know about. Um, there is an Azure service around this. I'm not here to sell you guys on that, but I just wanted you to know that one of the things that customers, organizations, healthcare providers especially are wanting to know is, okay, that's cool, but how do I manage that? How do I connect it to my other services? How do I make sure it's secure? All this kind of stuff. All good questions. And so what we've done in partnership with OpenAI that owns ChatGPT is we've built an Azure service around that. So it's a very common question. How do I make sure this is secure? How do I make sure it's not transmitting PHI data to somebody else and saving that into the model and all that? None of that happens, by the way. But we have a layer here that allows you to manage that as an organization. And the way I say, reason I say none of that happens, I'm gonna go back a slide here, is again, you can't change the model. If we took all the prompts that you guys were sending the model and allowed that to be fed back into the model, which is how traditional machine learning did kind of work, sometimes at least. Um, if we did that, you could, as a population, humanity could adversely change the behavior of the large language model. If everybody in highly populated country like China or whatever started putting in a bunch of bad stuff because they wanted to make the model do bad things, then they could. But that's not how it works. The data actually in the large language model, if you go ask it a question today, go to ChatGPT and ask it who won the last World Series or Super Bowl, or this past weekend's local high school game. It only knows data up through September 2021. Again, because these models are huge, they take forever to build, and they're very expensive. And we don't want to just muddy it up with random data. There is a human cleansing process that happens to make sure that the data we're providing still makes sense and it's not getting abused. So that's all part of it. Um, we do the same thing in Microsoft. We talk to customers all the time. Skip this one real quick. Come back to this. There we go. Responsible AI. So these are a bunch of patterns. There's competing versions of this. They're all kind of the same. But we believe strongly that you have to have responsibility around new technologies that have so much opportunity to do good and so much opportunity to be abused. Um, there, this is going to happen. The productivity benefits to AI are enormous, enormous for us as individuals, for organizations. This is huge. We don't want to stop this. We don't want to slow this down. But we want to make sure that we're thinking about it. The people that are involved, the people that are using this, are thinking about it in doing the right things, like treating everybody fairly, performing reliably, being transparent that when you're talking to a bot that is powered by AI, that we're clear. You're talking to a bot powered by AI. This is not a human, right? Um, Making sure we're inclusive. It should empower everybody, everybody. Um, and then people that are building these things should be accountable, right? If you make it do something bad with your bad prompt engineering, that's on you. And so those are all things that we believe in. Again, there's versions of this. You're welcome to go explore all of that. Let me go back now. Um, and these are some of the use cases we're seeing. Big impacts already in education, healthcare, entertainment, financial services, retail, I mean, just it's blowing up across the board. Most lowest hanging fruit use cases, code generation. That was the easy one right out of the gate. was written by a bunch of developers and built by a bunch of data scientists, and so they wanted help with code generation, right? And it's pretty good at that, right? It can do a good job of looking at code and summarizing it. It can do a good job of saying, "Hey, I've typed this much of a line of code and I'm trying to do this. Can you just type the rest of it for me?" It's pretty good at that. Um, Summarizing text. If you've got text, my daughter called the other day, another thing you guys can do while we're talking, go to ChatGPT and ask it to summarize some text for you. Um, this is really complicated paragraph. My daughter called and she had a very complicated paragraph. It was all written in Old English as well for her college course. And she's like, I don't know any of this stuff, Dad. Like, this is super hard. I'm like, put it in ChatGPT. Throw it in there. Ask it to summarize what it's doing. And her initial thought was, well, but Jeff, isn't that, or Dad, isn't that cheating? Um, and I said, no. Why is that? What's the assignment? Well, the assignment is I need to write a report around, what this all means. Like all you're asking it to do is help you get past the obstacle of Old English. Like you don't know how to do that, right? Yeah, it's not an Old English class, Dad. That's not what we're. Yeah, okay. Well, that's what you're doing. You still have to write the report. You still have to put your own opinions on it. You still have to do other research. Um, that's all you, right? This is just your co-pilot. This is just something to help you be better and faster. So writing assistance, essay outlines, those are closely related. Code refactoring again, unit test generation for any of you techies writing or generating code, all that is is like the lowest hanging use cases. More and more what we're seeing is semantic search, which is up in the top right there. What that means is asking questions of data. And so just like you guys would do with Bing or ChatGPT today, but now do it on internal stuff. And these are some of the use cases that are really exciting in healthcare. Lots of processes, lots of legalese, lots of very complex steps of things, right? Massive amounts of medical records dispersed all over the place in different formats. If it wasn't in a database prior to some of this technology, it was basically lost to us, which is weird, right? We save documents, we save PowerPoints, we put all this stuff in SharePoint, and yet the accessibility of the information in those was diminished dramatically after you wrote that document. It's hard to search that stuff. It's hard to get the answers out you want. Even if you can get to the right document, if it's a 256-page contract, it's hard to find the line that matters most to you or the lines scattered throughout that in combination matter the most to you. This is where AI really excels. You can feed it this information in your prompt, right? So all the little pieces of your documents or what have you, you can feed all that stuff to the prompt, and then you can ask it questions and say, hey, tell me about this complex process. Why did we create it initially? Okay, cool. That's why. How do I do the first 10 things? Like, what are the first 10 steps I need to do? How do I do that? All these things, it can just use data that's not in the model, but you're providing that data to the model, and then it's helping you figure out with its capabilities how to do those things. Again, just a co-pilot, but an amazingly powerful, productive one. Okay, that's the big use case stuff I wanted to get through. I'm gonna pause again. I'm gonna go back out to the chat here just a sec. Cool. Good. Lots of comments coming in. Sorry, David, I was not trying to make fun of your fifth grader. Um, let's see. Hopefully some questions in there. Okay, cool. Looks like somebody else answering a lot of these. And it looks like a lot of people are using it, which is what I was looking for. So I'm glad to see a lot of people are using this. It's really, really important to explore. If you haven't used ChatGPT yet, you have to get hands-on with it. Go ask it a bunch of questions. Questions about anything. Um, there are people, I had to work on my Tesla the other day, to do a bunch of stuff. I know nothing about fixing anything in there yet. It's brand new. And there's not that many people that I can go ask, right? But rather than crawl through YouTube or a bunch of owner's manual stuff, I simply ask ChatGPT, hey, What are the likely symptoms or likely problems from these symptoms? Cool. There was an article just yesterday that my wife sent me. I'll try and find it for you guys here. But article my wife sent me that talks about how this mom was getting really frustrated going around to all these different doctors trying to figure out what was wrong with her child. And they all had ideas. It wasn't like the doctors weren't trying. It wasn't like they didn't have, educated ideas about the thing. But she actually got the diagnosis that she took to a doctor that actually helped them from ChatGPT. But she fed all this information from these doctors that she was talking to into that prompt to help get the right language to get her the thing that she needed. It's not that another doctor couldn't have stepped in here and brought all of those doctors together and said, "Hey, here's all the information we have from all of you. Um, what's going on here?" Right? But that's hard to do with humans. It's hard. Maybe it shouldn't be, but it is. It's hard. It's a great story. It's a great story. So you should go try it. If you have questions, if you want to know about things, if you wanted to build a learning plan for you, hey, I want to pursue this in life, hobby wise, professionally, whatever. Can you build me a learning plan? It's really good at that. It's really good at that. There's a lot of these kinds of things that we all deal with every day that I would highly encourage you guys to explore. Um, and go back to the slides then. Let me skip that. Let me come back to it, but this is the other myths that I hear about a lot. So just kind of want to dive into these. The number one thing I see when someone brings up AI in mainstream news is what about job loss, Jeff? Not me. I'm not being interviewed, but whoever they're asking. What about job loss? This is going to impact jobs. I mean, it is interesting, right? There traditionally a lot of these big leaps forward in technology, like the Industrial Revolution, have targeted manual laborers. And this is the first really big one that targets white collar jobs. Like that's really the most impacted, also the most likely to benefit, right? My brother's in construction, doesn't need a lot of AI. I mean, he does use it actually. Hey, where can I go find this? What's the best way to do this thing? But it's not as big for him, who's hammering nails most of the day. Um, but it's a really big deal for us in the white collar jobs. There's a lot of benefits to lawyers and software developers and managers and you know nurses, I would argue, clinicians of all kinds. A lot of benefit here. Um, will it change the way that jobs are being done? Yeah, and I hope so, right? Wouldn't we all want to be more productive? When we all want to be better at our jobs? And for nurses and doctors, wouldn't you want to have better patient outcomes? A co-pilot can help you with that. So I hope we embrace it. The comment I heard the other day was around lawyers, and it is basically there are lawyers who are going to refuse AI. There are lawyers who are going to adopt AI to help them look at case precedents and all these things in real time. Um, one of those lawyers is going to be wildly successful, and the other one may not be a lawyer much longer. And so it's a change. It's a big change. But it's intended, and currently I would argue being used for the most part to benefit and make people more productive, or just to have silly fun. Um, Tech skills wise, there is a potential impact on the digital divide. Again, if you're struggling to get access to AI or to get your mind right around, the growth mindset around AI, then yes, there will be a growing divide there. That's not good. No, I'm not happy about that. Nobody is happy about that. However, interestingly here, it's also English. Never have we had a technological innovation like this, a major leap forward that allowed literally everybody that could speak English to participate. Well, English with an internet access, that is real, but like English. You used to have to, if when machine learning and data science came along, everybody's like, I want a $400,000 job. Fine, just go get a PhD in data science. Boy, it's like, that's hard. That takes a lot of money. That takes a lot of time. This is a pretty big innovation that we all have access to. That's pretty crazy. Um, and again, the last bullet, internet access. That's a real divide. That we've got to work on that. And I know there are people working on that, but Microsoft and Tesla and all these other companies that are working, Google, a lot of people working on that problem. But that is a growing divide, and that's a real problem. Luckily, all of you don't have that problem because you wouldn't be here. But some people don't, and that means they won't have access to amazing tools like AI. Right. I think that, oh, yeah, this is good too. Sorry. GPT versions. There are a lot of GPT models out there. You're going to hear those terms, GPT-3, GPT-3.5, GPT-4. That's what all the mainstream media is talking about now. I love it when they call it GTP-4. I know that they really did their homework. Um, but the big difference in those, the thing that take away from that is the token limits. The parameters that they've built in each version expand dramatically, which allows us to have bigger token limits as well. That means you can ask bigger questions. You can provide it more information so that you get back a better response. That's a really big deal, and that will continue to evolve and get better. Um, 32,000 tokens is actually really large, but it will continue to improve and allow us to do a lot more. So right now we have different patterns we use on the techie side of things that allow us to break up information in different ways, and so we can stay under that token limit. And so more tokens will allow us to take in more data at a time. Um, but yeah, that's kind of that. There are real use cases. Most of the rest of the slides I have in here are around some of the use cases we've been working on. Not all relevant to healthcare. I will tell you again, in healthcare, we're seeing a lot of chatbots that are patient facing getting replaced with OpenAI, ChatGPT capabilities. Um, that is becoming very common because it can do a lot more scenarios. Again, you can control it. There's prompt engineering techniques to help you keep it focused on healthcare and say I don't know when it doesn't have information that provided to it, but to help you with all kinds of things, summarizing lab results and doctor's notes and tell you about medicines and side effects and where to find more information. These are all things that it does really, really well. Um, and then on the clinician side, also, again, the complexities of healthcare are real, as you all know, and helping create more AI co-pilots around that is something that we're working with a lot of health providers on. So we're excited about that. Okay, I will stop. I think that's the extent of everything I wanted to talk through. Um, any questions? Anybody want to come off mute? Anybody have anything unanswered? Oh, Drew. Drew had a question. Lawyers need to work with actual case precedent. What if ChatGPT imagined fake cases? Yeah, that is a very real problem. However, it's not that hard to fix. So if you use your prompt engineering correctly, you can actually tell it things as simple as, and don't make up answers, only use case information from whatever you give it, right? So, and then it will do that, right? So it actually does a good job of that. Now, if you don't give it those instructions, then you can get into trouble. So it's a prompt engineering is super important, and it's really easy, guys. It's just English. What I typically tell people on those to start with, imagine you're talking to a toddler, or if you ever did that exercise when you were in school around programming of any kind, even like super basic stuff, imagine you're telling instructions to a robot that is just stupid and literal. That's what this is. So if you tell it, you know, go make a pizza, it's going to be like, I don't know what to do there. I have no clue what to do. But if you tell it, hey, go get pepperoni, go get cheese, go, like, you be very step by step, it will do that. So think about it that way. Um, are you working with nurses on healthcare innovations? Yes, I can't talk to all those use cases. I mean, at a high level, I can, Muriel, jeez. Um, But yes, copilots, you think about having a phone or a tablet in your pocket that you could literally ask questions about live as needed about all kinds of things. Yes, that is absolutely a use case we're working on, set of use cases. Um, Internal organization websites, number one use case, Angela. Number one, like by far. Everybody's like, this is great, but the large language model doesn't have access to all my internal documents. Um, and so how do I use it to search through my internal documents? That is the number one use case by far. It's huge. I think every one of our customers is exploring that. Very, very cool. Um, let's see. What else? Oh, Hiem, thanks for the tip. How close is generative AI to being used in healthcare to assist clinicians in documentation? Oh, very. I would argue it's already happening. So that one is it's not widespread yet, but it is happening. I want to take documentation notes. I want to translate speech to text. There's a Whisper API. I didn't get into that, but like there's a bunch of stuff there already happening. That'll continue to roll out very quickly. Um, see, let me go back up again. Um,
Jeff, I think Angela's asking kind of our enterprise OpenAI solution, right? How can I have it search my company's stuff?
yeah, and that's what I was saying that that's like the lowest hanging, most common use case request right now, like by far. So we're absolutely working with customers who they have to chunk their internal documents. That's what it's called. It's called chunking, where you basically tear apart your document repository into smaller pieces that we can then feed, and there's a bunch of patterns for this, into the prompt. And so you first say, all right, well, hey, great search technology, which we already have, go figure out all the documents that are most relevant to this thing, which today would mean you'd have to go open up all those. That's pain. Um, but instead, we just go send it all the little parts of the most relevant documents prompt, and then it comes back and answers your question. It's amazing. It's very straightforward. It's again number one use case, like by far. Hopefully, I answered your question. Um, I like Bernadette. I like what you said there. The co-pilot terms. It's more like the spotter sniper relationship. I just don't think the spotter sniper is a super um, well appreciated relationship. It's a little too aggressive, I think, for most people. So we went with Copilot. But you're not wrong. Um, so let's see here. And again, would you fire if ChatGPT told you to? I mean, the important part here with copilots, right, is that you're still the human taking action. So that's an important part of our responsible AI framework, that if AI comes back and says, "Hey, here's a set of steps you should do." Well, as a human, you still have to look at that. That's important, right? In law enforcement is another big industry for some of this stuff. For a long time, even before generative AI, they were using machine learning to, feed in a bunch of criminal statistics, feed in a bunch of forensic knowledge, and then say, "All right, tell me who the culprit was." And they have actually real lawsuits where cops who have initially fought against, I don't want anything to do with AI. It can't do what I do. And then they've gotten AI and they've acted on that AI without pushing on it, without challenging it. It's called automation bias. It's a real problem. And so we're having to train people on no, 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 no. You can't just take this stuff verbatim. It's just there to give you a bunch of information quickly, and then you still have to be the human, the editor, if you will, that says, yeah, this makes sense. I can do this, or I'll validate that, or what have you. That's still important. And so in education, which is probably close to some of you guys here, that hey, if I can I have it go write my essay for me and then just copy paste that into Word and send that to my teacher? You can. But if your teacher asks you questions about that paper tomorrow and how brilliant this paragraph was, that seems like it was full of incorrect statements, that's on you. Like you should have read it. Like that's the human accountability here. So yep, all good things, all good questions. Uh, Early use case in healthcare be AAD, interprets rhythm and tell you action. Yeah, it's really good at patterns. Absolutely. Don't look at it as diagnostics though. Actually, a lot of people will see this and go, wow, it's better at diagnosing than doctors. I mean, kinda. It's a pattern. That's what it's looking for. So you still, again, you need a human in there who adds in all the other context that you didn't send it. So don't don't conflate it, I guess is how I'd say that. But yes, it's very good at looking at patterns and then feeding back like, well, based on the pattern I'm seeing, it's likely one of these things. And then someone trained can look at that and go, all right, but you didn't know about this, ChatGPT. So number one is out. Number three is out. 4 and 2, maybe worth exploring. I will go look into that. That's kind of the process here.
Yeah, I think that's why imaging is really
Yeah.
a great case use, because it's constantly reading and looking at the patterns. But Jeff, I wanted to ask you a question. This is like incredible stuff. Thank you. I
Good.
learned so much. What advice would you have for the hackers on the call if they wanted to think about their solution over the weekend, like to use some of this, or if you can just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. No, great question. Start playing with ChatGPT now. That was kind of going to be my homework for everybody here. So we're getting ahead. But like, go play with ChatGPT now. Go ask it questions about things that you're going to deal with this weekend. So whatever you're dealing with this weekend, go out of your way to say, I wonder what ChatGPT would say about that. Even if you know the answer. Even if you know the answer. And play with your prompt. So as we get into the hackathon, again, it's really just English. That's what we're talking about here. So play with your prompt a bit. Okay, that's not exactly what I wanted. What if I asked it this way? What if I do it? What if I do this? What if I gave it a little bit more information? Right? Do that. Those two things are your homework. So ask it questions, even questions you know answers to, and then play with that question and see if you can get it to behave differently. Best way to access ChatGPT. Oh, sorry, I should have put a link at the beginning. It's the open. If you just search for ChatGPT in Bing, Google, whatever your thing is, I believe it's openai.chatgpt.com. And someone can correct me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's it. And it's free. It's completely free. So you can go out there and ask a ton of questions. If you prefer to just go to Bing and go to the chat tab, it's fine. Either way, you get to the same place. So nice thing about Bing is it actually has more recent information. It's using the same model underneath, exactly the same, but it's first doing that search that I was telling you about and feeding in more relevant, up-to-date information. So you can ask Bing who won the last World Series, and it will tell you. So, but yeah, just go to the ChatGPT side. I think that's the better way to keep you focused. Bing will get you going down all kinds of rat holes probably. Let's see.
I think Jasmine has her hand up.
Oh, thanks.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Hi,
Jasmine, what
yes,
do you
I
got?
had a question. What is the source that ChatGPT is getting the macro language from? And
Yeah.
is there bias from using that source?
Yeah. So yes, I can answer the first question, and it's a hard yes on the second one. So yes, the answer to the question is that it uses all of the internet. That's like the simple answer there, Jasmine. It can't go into things that are secured, right? So if it's secured, it doesn't do that. And there's been a lot of work over the last year-ish around copyright and things like that, which is what a lot of the writer strike is actually about, if you guys are following any of that. And making sure that if large language models, AI, are using information that is copyrighted or owned by others, that is taken into account and or removed from the model, which they try to do, believe it or not. And so that's the repository of data. And so because it's just made up of human data on the internet, there is inherent bias. Absolutely. Right? It's just humans, and we all have biases. And so there absolutely is bias in that data. I will tell you though too, oftentimes you're going to get more bias from your prompt than the underlying data. So depending on how you ask your question, you're going to influence the response more than anything else, if that makes any sense. A lot of what the large language model is doing is really just language, right? And so you're going to get more bias out of how you ask your question, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense, Jasmine. Anything else? Jasmine, you still have your hand up. Do you have another question or?
Yeah, just a follow-up question.
Yeah,
Is that going to
sure.
lead to an increase of misinformation related to pulling sources from online? Like, is there a regulatory body that's ensuring that whatever is being illustrated on Chat GPT is actually accurate?
So yes and no. So there are efforts to create regulatory bodies across many different companies and governments and things like that. The problem there is you can't keep up. That's a little bit Jeff's opinion, by the way, but like there's no this stuff's moving way faster. I equate it to an extreme version of if you watched Facebook be interviewed by Congress a few years ago. It was hilarious how many congressmen had like no idea the basic understanding of the internet. like wow. That's kind of where we're at. But again, there are frameworks like I showed you around responsible AI that I think are more likely to be effective. And so I think that's really good. As far as leading to more misinformation, I think it could make misinformation more. Um, it could allow people to generate misinformed completions, but not really any faster than you could write lies down today, if that makes any sense. So I don't know that it'll contribute to that. Now, if people put in, like, I guess what I'm saying a different way would be, I don't need ChatGPT to write lies and post them on LinkedIn. I can do that without ChatGPT, if that makes any sense. Um, so yeah, but any technology can be abused, of course, anything, right? If this isn't ChatGPT doing this, but if you've seen some of those deep fake videos, like that stuff's incredible. What they get famous people to say that they didn't actually say. That's not ChatGPT that does that. It doesn't do anything with videos today. But yeah, you can make that happen, and then people will believe that that's true. Any other questions? Thanks for posting the links, Chad. All right. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, I'm trying to remove some myths. There are a lot of things to consider around AI. I think they will be part of more and more solutions across, again, all of our jobs. It's very powerful, provides tons of benefits to all kinds of use cases, and it's relatively easy and inexpensive to use. So there's not a lot of things in its way besides the myths, right? The things that people don't understand about it. Um, and we deal with that every day at Microsoft. I can tell you, lots of customers, very technical people that will get us on calls and say, "How do I make AI do this?" And we're like, "Yeah, that's not how that works. That's not a thing." Um, and there's things that it's not good at, right? There are things like math. Actually, you can go put in simple math problems, and there are tricks to make it good at math. But inherently, it's not what it does. It's a language model. You know, um, my wife's got a master's degree in English literature. Math's not her strong suit either. Right. I said that mostly because she was right walking by. All right. That's everything I had, guys. If you don't have anything else, I look forward to seeing you in the hack. I hope you guys consider AI for some of the solutions. Obviously, you don't have to, but I think it's a very powerful thing for you to get an opportunity to get hands-on with and explore. I hope you at least check it out, and don't forget the homework. Thanks again, Hiam, for teeing that up. I definitely want you guys to play with ChatGPT this weekend. I want you guys to try and ask questions different ways. So thanks a ton. All right. Bye all.